Swoopes led the charge against Clark with false claims about her age, her shot selection, and her record-breaking career. And now Sheryl Miller is calling out every single lie.
If Caitlin Clark and Fever fans didn't already love Sheryl Miller, they're gonna love her even more now after she was on All the Smoke and wanted smoke with any Caitlin Clark haters.
When Miller said, "Come on, you big dummies," Legends seem absolutely determined to tear down Caitlin Clark from the moment she stepped into the spotlight. But nobody, and I mean nobody, has been more consistently critical than Sheryl Swoopes.
And I'm talking about the Indiana Fever, and I had to get on, somebody we both have incredible respect for in Sheryl Swoopes. You're a champion on every level, one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Because I said, how do you mention the Indiana Fever and all of these other players and you don't mention Caitlin Clark? And then all of a sudden she gets on me and calls me a coward and all of this other stuff.
Let's rewind and look at what's been happening, because this wasn't just a one-time slip-up or a single bad take. Swoopes competing against 20-year-olds in college. That's just flat out wrong. Clark was 22 during her senior year, completely normal for a college senior. When called out on this blatant misrepresentation, Swoopes tried to backpedal, suggesting she was just using hyperbole related to COVID eligibility rules. But come on, that's not hyperbole. That's creating a false narrative.
Caitlin Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game. You have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old. Like, you should be killing them.
Yeah. The attacks only got weirder from there. Swoopes went on to claim that Clark was taking an absurd 40 shots per game. The reality? Clark averaged 22.7 shots per game. Want to know something really interesting? That's only 3 more shots than Swoopes herself averaged during her own senior year. Talk about throwing stones from a glass house.
This isn't just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
As Clark approached the NCAA all-time scoring record, Swoopes shifted tactics again. She started suggesting Clark needed a 5th year to accomplish what other greats did in 4. Again, completely false. Clark put this expectation that Clark would struggle at the pro level. And then what happened? Clark went on to average 19.2 points and lead the entire league with 8.4 assists per game in her rookie season. And suddenly, Swoopes got real quiet about those predictions.
She's a senior, but I think her COVID year was last year or this year. I don't know.
If one is going to run with falsehoods such as these, at least know, okay? At least know how many years the person you are talking about has played.
One of the most revealing moments came when Swoopes appeared on Angel Reese's podcast. There she was, continuing to undermine Clark while simultaneously claiming, "I don't dislike her." It's classic saying one thing while doing another. The contradiction was so obvious, it was almost comical.
And I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion.
Things got so bad that Swoopes was actually removed from broadcasting a Fever game because of her comments about Clark. She was replaced by Nancy Lieberman, who didn't hesitate to call out all the misinformation being spread about the rookie sensation.
And, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinions.
Just when Clark seemed completely surrounded by critics with nowhere to turn, the basketball gods sent in the cavalry. When Sheryl Miller walked into the All the Smoke podcast, she wasn't just there to chat basketball. She arrived ready to deliver the most authentic defense of Caitlin Clark.
Coaching job ever!
What makes Miller's perspective so powerful? Unlike all those critics throwing stones from the sidelines, Miller actually coached Clark during the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game. She saw the rookie's talents up close, watched her work ethic firsthand, and wasn't about to let the nonsense continue unchallenged.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
You know that viral "come on you big dummies" moment that's been circulating everywhere? That was just Miller warming up. What followed was a masterclass in how a true legend defends an emerging star. Miller systematically dismantled every false narrative that's been pushed about Clark with the kind of authority that can only come from someone with her basketball credentials.
You know, I'm playing at a high level, but it's been a blessing just to watch the women grow and watch the women find their voices, use their platforms, and finally get paid.
Right.
That's been, if anything, the flowers for me is to see their achievements now.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job ever.
I mean, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Confident.
And I love that about her.
But here's where Miller's takedown gets even more devastating. She pointed out something Clark's critics conveniently ignore. This rookie isn't just playing great basketball, she's elevating the entire WNBA. Miller made it crystal clear that Clark's presence is benefiting everyone, including the very people trying to tear her down.
But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
The Hall of Famer revealed how she watched Clark handle the immense pressure of being hit with everything left and right during her rookie season. Can you imagine what it must feel like to have legends of the game seemingly united against you? Miller saw this isolation firsthand and became one of the few to offer Clark unconditional support.
It's just been fascinating to watch these young ladies come up and now take the baton and take it to a different level.
There was this incredibly emotional moment Miller described after Indiana secured their first win. When she saw me, she was like, "Oh man, finally somebody who's on my side," Miller recalled. Just let that sink in for a second. One of the most celebrated rookies in sports history, feeling so isolated that seeing one friendly face brought that kind of reaction. That tells you everything about what Clark has been dealing with behind
the upper tier players. I hope and pray that they have a solid foundation. And they know guys who they are, because you know how vicious it is out there.
The negativity surrounding Clark might be blinding people to what truly makes her special on the court. When Sheryl Miller coached Clark at the All-Star game, she walked in with one perspective, but left with her mind completely blown by aspects of the rookie's game that critics conveniently ignore. What Miller discovered that day explains why she believes the Fever's future isn't just bright, it's championship caliber promising.
It was like, just fly, just fly, just fly, and watching her pass, and I didn't know how talented she was and how well she sees the game in a 3D version. Thinker. Defensively, a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for.
Everyone's so focused on Clark's shooting and scoring numbers that they're missing what actually separates her from other talented players. Miller had the rare opportunity to coach Clark up close, and what she witnessed was a dimension of basketball understanding that transcends the stat sheet. It wasn't just Clark's individual ability that impressed her, it was something far more valuable for building a championship team.
So watching her and just spending a little time, and one thing, guys, that I've learned is to step back and let these kids be themselves.
What specifically caught Miller's attention? Her passing. The one thing that I don't think people really appreciate about that young lady's game, she can pass the ball, Miller emphasized. Think about that for a second. While everyone's debating her shooting percentages or scoring totals, Miller, one of the greatest to ever play the game, is pointing to Clark's court vision and passing ability as her most underappreciated skill.
And when she coached at the WNBA All-Star game, of course, her and Clark had a little bit of a rapport and a vibe, and that was a story at the time.
And it's not just about making the obvious passes either. Miller recognized that Clark sees the court differently than most players, almost like she's viewing the game in 3 dimensions, while others really interesting. Remember how critics constantly attack Clark's defense? Miller completely shattered that narrative with firsthand observation, stating Clark was defensively a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for. This isn't some random hot take. This is Sheryl Miller, Hall of Famer and basketball legend, directly contradicting one of the most common criticisms leveled against Clark.
You can do other things, but it takes a true gift to have that kind of court vision that she has. And Sheryl Miller recognized that there in the clip, of course.
Miller's praise extended beyond just Clark as an individual. What she witnessed during her time coaching the All-Star Game convinced her that something special.
That emphatically.
What impressed Miller most about the Fever wasn't just their physical talents, but their mental approach to the game. This reveals something crucial about championship teams that casual fans often miss. It's not just about athletic ability, but the cerebral dimensions the game at an elite level. The foundation for something special is clearly being established.
My main thing, I want to see how we as women, because again, I know they're going to get mad at me for saying this, we can be petty. We can be short-sighted.
No. No. This is my first time hearing this.
We can, but I'm just hoping that we can embrace one another, whether you're playing for the dub or you're playing in Unrivaled.
What we're seeing here is more than just a sports rivalry. It's how the rookie's impact is changing the financial landscape for everyone. With that being said, you big dummies, is you getting paid now? That's the knockout punch critics can't recover from. Clark's presence is literally putting money in their pockets.
And I just hope, again, backtracking, that we as women can understand and embrace we all have a seat at the table, and it's for the betterment of the sport.
The Indiana Fever aren't just developing a star, they're building something special. Miller